Could you see yourself living in a container? Well, there's a lot of people today that are starting to decide maybe the answer to that question is yes. Why? It's because homes have become so expensive. So a lot of people are being priced out of the market. So for them, the idea of living in a container home is becoming more desirable. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with this growing trend, a container home is a home that is made from steel shipping containers. And a lot of these shipping containers are being repurposed to make homes. So, yes, repurposed means that they've been used to ship products overseas, or perhaps they're shipping containers that came in from overseas, whatever the case. They're shipping containers that are used to build homes. Now, this growing trend is not only becoming popular in the US, but really all over the world. Market analysis suspect that the growth rate of container homes, both here in the US and in other countries, is going to grow about 6 to 7% over the next year and continue on from there because they are so popular, not just in the United States, but again in other countries as well. So again, why are people considering container homes? Well, again, they're less expensive to build a container home than it is to build a traditional home. For contractors, it's faster construction time, and it allows for very unique designs and unique construction. Now, these homes, although they are small, some of them can be actually built quite large. So it just all depends on how many containers you purchase. That determines the size of the home, right? So it's very customizable, and I'm telling you, they have some really unique designs. I've seen some container homes that are being built in Ferndale, here in Michigan, also in Detroit, and various other areas around the metro Detroit area here in Michigan. So I myself am considering purchasing land and perhaps constructing some tiny homes for sale. So the standard 20-foot container provides about 140 square feet for that home. So if you want to construct, a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot home, you can. You just have to purchase the right amount of containers in order to build the size home that you want. Now, the price per square footage for a container home, new construction, is somewhere between $14 and $2,000. Now, although that sounds pretty expensive, overall, when you look at the overall construction cost, it's typically somewhere around 50 to 80% less than the cost to build a brand new home. So again, these homes can be very unique in design. They can be very stylish, and they're pretty durable. I would say very durable because they're made of steel. So environmentally, you may be helping out the environment as well, because rather than throwing these containers out when companies are done with them, they're actually being repurposed and designed to build homes. Now, one thing I want to let you know is these container homes, though they are made of steel and they are very strong, they're strongest most at their corners. When you cut out a window in one of the containers, that area then becomes very vulnerable and a bit weak. So it does have to be reinforced. So you want to make sure that, number one, before deciding to purchase a home like this, a container home, that you first do some research. And there's a number of areas that you'll want to research first. Number one, who's your builder? What is their experience? Did they reinforce the container when they cut out an area to create a window or a door? The other thing is, some of these containers have been treated with pesticides and perhaps some other chemicals based on the things that were being transported in these containers prior to that container being repurposed to build a home. So you'll want to make sure that those containers, if they've been treated with certain chemicals, that those chemicals are no longer harmful. Maybe the container has been gone through a process where it's been thoroughly cleaned, washed, whatever the case may be. You may even opt to say, hey, I want a brand new container, one that has not been repurposed. That's okay as well. The other thing you want to consider is there are some mortgage companies out there that may or may not finance a container home. So you want to first find out who your mortgage people are that will allow you to purchase a container home. The next thing you want to look into is insurance purposes. What insurance companies out there will insure a container home? And then looking further down the road in the future, container homes aren't going to resell at the same value as a traditional brick and mortar home will, or even a home, that's made of siding. So that we just have to understand that you just have to understand that this is a new market, and although it is a good value for today, it's still going to be a good value for the future. But right now, we don't think that it's going to be considered, on the same value level as a traditional home. But again, the whole purpose in buying or building a container home is for a more affordable price tag. Now we've looked at the pros of owning a container home. So now let's look at some of the cons. Some of the cons that I mentioned is the fact that, some of these containers may have been, sprayed with pesticides or some other chemicals based on whatever the items that it carried prior to being repurposed. So you'll want to make sure that they're cleaned out thoroughly. The next thing is you'll want to find out, in every city they have building rules and regulations that have to be followed strictly prior to building these homes. So you'll want to do a little bit of research and contact the county in which you want to have a container home built. You'll also want to look into the person who's going to construct it for you, find out what their expertise is, and make sure that they're going to follow the specific guidelines in place that municipality, the rules that municipality has put in place. So they're not going to cut any corners, and they are going to construct things the way that they should be constructed. The other thing is, in places like Michigan, where we have the 4 seasons, in the wintertime it's really cold, in the summertime it's really hot, those are ripe conditions for steel container homes to develop rust or mold. So you'll want to make sure that your container home is being treated properly to minimize the buildup of rust and the buildup of mold. The other thing is you'll also want to make sure that there is the right padding or insulation in your container home, because again, in the wintertime, you don't want your home to be super cold, because then your heating bill will go up because there's so much heat that is escaping. And then in the summertime, you want it to be well insulated, because you don't want the house to be super hot. And remember, this is a metal container. You don't want to cook inside your home, but then you also don't want your air conditioning to be running all the time, and thereby increasing your energy bill. Okay, so the other thing is you'll want to make sure that your home has a proper vapor barrier, because with all the changes in the seasons, there's going to be hot temperatures, there's going to be cold temperatures, there's going to be expansion and retraction, and there's also there may be expansion and retraction. But then the other thing that you want to worry about again is the vapor, the humidity, and again that leads us to the mold factor that we want to avoid. So in other words, all in all, container homes are becoming a very viable option for those of you who decide you'd rather own a home rather than rent, even if it's a tiny home. I think that's a good idea. So thank you for watching Financial Fix with Sharnella. Like and subscribe to see more videos like this. And again, if there's something else that you'd like to hear me talk about, just write it in the comments. But again, thank you for watching. See you on the next episode.